What is up, everyone? I was supposed to actually set that. Look, I'm running behind today. I'm having a good day though. How are you guys doing? You guys having a good day? I hope so. Let me get rid of that. Were you enjoying the locals, the new, or not the locals, the Rumble new intro video that I put? You know, deep thoughts with Adam Crigler. You can unmute it now, by the way, for everyone over on Rumble, because it was probably annoying to hear it over and over. Before I bring on the guest, I just want to let everyone know, if you are a supporter over on Locals, I just uploaded my entire concert from CBGB's back in 2006. Yeah, way back. This was before they even closed down. This was pretty much at the peak of me playing music around New York City pretty constantly, actually. I was having a show pretty much every other week. It was pretty great. Good times. And it's an interesting show because it wasn't using a steel string guitar. It was me using a classical guitar. So softer strings. There's some songs on there that you've probably never heard before. So if you're a supporter over on my Locals, it's only for local supporters. But if you are a local supporter, definitely go over there and check it out. It's also a great way to support me. So I appreciate you guys. Okay, so I'm going to bring on my guest. This is BX, formerly Bullet, no longer Bullet. You got rid of the Bullet, right? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I did kind of go through a rebrand recently.
Yeah, what caused the rebrand?
Well, if you saw the video that's pinned to my Twitter about the child predator stuff, after all of that, there was like a big, I don't want to call it a smear campaign. I guess that's what it was. Just a bunch of like really weird stuff kind of happened, and I got banned from YouTube, and there was just a bunch of weird stuff going on, and I kind of just like fell off for a while and tried to just go away. And then when I came back, I wanted a more chill vibe. I wanted less like crazy people coming out of the woodworks all the time. So,
Well, it's the internet. It's kind of hard to avoid that. That's actually when I first saw you on my radar, is because of the whole Twitch stuff. And you were, I mean, I like people who fight for children out there, right? Because there's so many predators in this world, and it pisses me off, like anyone who's taken advantage of kids. So when I see people who are actively fighting and even getting shit on, even though and you're one of those people that I've seen you fight against Twitch, and I've watched a lot of your Twitch exposure videos and I didn't really know how deep Twitch went with it, and
bad.
it's part of the reason why I don't use Twitch at all.
Yeah.
And I don't like that company. I don't think that they're good, and I know Kick isn't any better, right? I mean, I feel like it's the same
Actually, there's
issue.
been some interesting developments there. So like because of the whole Twitch thing, that we were, well, mainly me, but there was also another anonymous investigator involved in that. Anonymous to me even, right? But
Okay.
once Bloomberg exposed that, it was such a big, it got buried because on the same day, Twitch, and in my opinion, they strategically did this. They banned gambling, and they also they announced this new really unfavorable creator revenue split the same day. So they released these two huge decisions.
Right.
And the Bloomberg reporter who wrote the piece, she confirmed to me that they did know that this piece was coming out that day. So like they definitely timed it so that it would bury the Predator story. And it was pretty successful at that because no one realized that all these new changes Twitch was going through. They were adding the shield mode. They were adding all this AI moderation, changing categories, doing all these big changes, and people were complaining. Well, they could have just been straightforward and said, hey, there was a huge, massive child predator ring. And because of that, the UK's regulatory body, Ofcom, basically stepped in and like showed them like they were manhandling Twitch and saying, you have to make these changes or we're going to yeet you out of the UK. So it was actually a pretty big deal, like a bigger deal than most people thought.
Yeah.
And
I
so
didn't
they
even
did
know
make,
about that, actually. That's
yeah, well, of
crazy.
course, because they didn't really make it public because it was bad. They also fired a lot of their trust and safety team at around the same time that they put out all this AI moderation capability. But anyway,
Right.
it's a
Was
long
that like
story.
the deer person, like that team?
That
You know
was
who I'm
that
talking
was
about,
part
right?
of the, yeah, so that was part of their like public facing moderation team. And it was so funny because that person deer, whatever. I'm not going to use a pronoun for
Dear
a deer.
person.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And, they made this big deal about how they were going to bully white supremacists and these far right, racists and all this. And I'm like, hey, I have a problem that I need addressed, hello, on Twitter. And they were like, you're triggering me. And they like blocked me. And then they went on their page, started whining that I was misgendering them. And it was this huge thing. And everybody was watching and we're like, are you serious?
Which of course
like,
is violence now. So you created violence against them.
yeah, they're like, address the problem. Yeah. But Kick, though, when they first started, I was pretty loud about them as well, because I was like, hey, before you even start, here's what's about to happen. These predators are about to jump ship, because they just, when I say predators, I want to like make sure people understand that this isn't just like some weird feet fetish guys that type creepy stuff in chat, right? These were this was a coordinated ring of like, it was basically an organized crime ring, probably in somewhere in Eastern Europe. So and there's thousands
I'll say
of them.
probably Ukraine.
Yeah.
I'll
possibly
say
because a lot of the
channel.
dialect they use and a lot of the channels they targeted were Russian Ukrainian channels by and large.
Well,
so
I was kind of joking, but I knew that Ukraine was one of the top
they are
human trafficking, right? Okay.
And all the kids that are on Twitch too, a lot of them are from Eastern Europe in that little area. So they use this to get child abuse material by convincing the kids to do things, convincing them to go talk to them on Snapchat or other platforms. And then what they do is now that they have the abuse material, they can blackmail the kids into doing more, right? Which is devastating. I mean, there's been a huge surge in like preteen suicides and stuff over this kind of thing. And then once they have the material, they distribute it in a Discord or a Telegram group, and they advertise those groups on Twitter. So they're literally using social media platforms every step of the way to get their product, to advertise and sell their product. And so when Kick started out, we were really loud about it because they weren't moderating well. And when we were reporting concerning things to their moderation staff, we found out their staff was probably about 6 people, and it was in Serbia. And they did not care. Yeah, it was very
How
small.
How are 6 people going to do that?
Well, and they were trying to say, well, we're new. And we're like, okay, we get that you're new, but like this, we had to report this to Nick. Like we had to report this to like the feds, like do something about it, Well, like a couple months ago, Kick really did acknowledge this, and they came out with new community guidelines for moderation. They banned all of the problematic categories that people were using to kind of do these things. And in my opinion, they were proactive. So I'll continue to monitor it, but I was happy to see that Kick they didn't wait. They did that pretty quickly, considering they're still in beta.
Do you think that Twitch was being proactive as well?
No.
Like knowing that even still.
No. I mean, so now, yes, because I wouldn't call this proactive. I would call this reactive, because a country is making them do it, right? But now if I go to Twitch and we have researched this recently and tried to go, when we find these kids streaming, and when I say kids, like it's hard for me to tell what a 13-year-old is because I'm old. And so a 13-year-old to me looks like a baby, right?
I know. I know the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I say the kids, like what they're doing is they're scrolling all the way to the lowest view count streams. And these kids have phones, and they're not like set up.
Not professionals.
Yeah.
Like they're just trying
to really obvious. Some of them
trying
are like,
to get attention, really, is the core of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're old enough to hit the go live button, they're old enough to figure it out. And then these predators, they're in 100% of the channels because they're watching for these kids. So when we look at it now, Twitch's AI moderation system is kicking them almost as soon as we find them. So I think it is working. So at least they're doing something about it now. But, what we found out with the Bloomberg release was that 280,000 kids had been targeted in a 2-year span.
Wow.
On Twitch alone.
By this one group. Is that what you're saying? Like this one syndicate or whatever?
Like about 2,000 predators, which the predators, we say that loosely because these people are probably in labor camps working at call centers,
Right.
Like it's not like these people are predators who are they are predators by definition, but they're not PDF files or whatever you say on YouTube, right? This is their job, is to get this material because this is $1 billion industry for them.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And so you made a connection with Twitter, and I've seen you make quite a stink long before Elon actually took over, which was great to see. Because there's I used to have I don't know, friendship, I guess, with Eliza Blue, who I'm sure you probably have heard of, right? Because she's a trafficking advocate, but she had some
Yeah.
fallout with the
I was
internet,
involved in a
whatever.
lot of that kind of, yeah, backstage too. Yeah. So
Yeah, well, it
well,
doesn't
we all
matter.
know each other.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
bring her up. I'm just like I like seeing people fight against that kind
Right.
of shit. I don't want to
Hmm.
like whatever happened with her, but I saw the differences, and when Elon took over, you were actually one of the people who were like screaming the loudest, like this is something that you need to put at the top of the line, top of the priority list. And it seems like Elon wanted to make a difference and has.
Yeah.
No?
I
Tell
can
me
care.
the
And
whole
yeah.
Twitter thing.
The
Break it
Twitter
down.
thing is like, so when he was paying attention to Eliza Blue's calls, I thought that was great. I was really, really happy that he was saying that he was going to make, this priority number one. But what
Yeah.
happened is when he stepped in, he did, and I don't think it was intentional, right? I think that he just made a lot of missteps. And I think that he overestimated his actual ability to make that priority number one
Yeah, I
because
can see that.
and I don't know if you know, I mean, you knew that I was banned from Twitter for 10 weeks, right? With
I
no
do know that, yeah.
explanation. So
Yeah.
that happened right when I started to go public with the problem Twitter was currently having, which was that there were bots that were spamming this. You know how I just said that they use Twitter to advertise? Well,
Right.
there were bots doing this and they were spamming tweets at a rate of about 200 tweets per minute.
Wow.
That yeah, so
That's
there
a
was
lot.
a bot farm that was spamming. Basically, they would spam the links to the Discord, and there was also explicit material there too. Unfortunately, that they should have been able to use AI recognition to get off there. So I don't know. The problem is they weren't controlling the bots. They're still not controlling the bots, but this particular bot farm sprang up, and I noticed it. I had several other people messaging me about it within a few days because the search term was Discord. So if you were to, isn't the case anymore, they fixed it. But if you were to type in the word Discord in the chat or in the search bar,
Uh,
it would, even if you had your sensitive content filters on, it would start, you just see it just spamming these child
because there was so
exploitation
many.
servers.
There's so many of them.
Yeah. And so we were trying,
Wow.
and so, and Eliza Blue, even I messaged her even, and she's, I don't even know what they're going to do about this. This is insane.
Yeah.
So I Karened out about that for a while. They didn't do anything about it. In fact, they banned my account twice for reporting about it, for using the reporting tool. They said I was abusing the reporting tool.
Wow.
And so eventually they banned me for 10 weeks. I don't know why, but in that interim time, they did end up fixing that problem. But that problem with the bots was going on for about 8 weeks, I think. And there were ads showing up on these bots pages too. So like all of these millions of tweets were technically counting towards their metrics and their data and stuff.
Right.
So that's what happened with Twitter. They did fix it. They say that they're working on it. I don't go actively looking for content like that because it's devastating to
I
see
believe it.
that.
I've
First of
never
all, it's
seen it.
just
I
yeah,
don't think I ever want to see it.
no,
I know it exists. I don't need to see it to believe it. It's one of the
right,
few things in life that I'm like, you know what? I think I'm
yeah.
good.
I don't
Yeah,
like to
so
talk about it because it's honestly traumatic,
I
so
believe
the
it.
fact that you could see it with the simple search on their function was terrifying.
Yeah.
That stuff's usually hidden on the dark web. That's what we think about it, but in nowadays it's not. It's hidden on in plain sight on social media platforms, and
Yeah.
anybody could accidentally find it, and it will scar you for life.
Well,
So,
what I don't or what I recognize is, I mean, I just talked about this yesterday. There's a new report from Jim Jordan he put out. I don't know if you saw this, but basically, we know from the Twitter files how ingrained government was with Twitter alone. And he
mhm.
was basically there's this new report essentially
Yeah.
saying, yeah, we've confirmed it's the same with all big tech.
Oh
Like
yeah.
nothing's safe. Facebook,
Yeah.
I know Facebook's got an issue with this too, right? And
Yeah. Well, so yeah, and Yeah, well, I've been yelling about this too because if there's another thing that I really care now about, it's government corruption.
Yeah.
Government basically behind the strings using influence operations online for whatever reason. I'm very opposed to the FBI, most of the FBI, their informant program. I think we should
Yeah.
defund most three-letter agencies, to be quite honest with you at this point.
Or just get rid of them. I mean,
And part of the reason that I believe that is because like I don't see them actually doing anything. If I'm just a normal mom from Texas, like I'm not an FBI agent, I'm not a federal investigator, right? And it
yeah.
seems like we're doing more in the advocacy space than these guys are doing.
I
You
do
know,
know. I mean, doing this show, I've been doing it for over 3 years now, which is crazy to think about. But I have done plenty of segments about FBI raids where they're saving children. Oftentimes in random states, usually like I don't know, Georgia,
oh yeah.
Florida, Ohio. I can't think of any other specific ones, but I'm pretty sure those three states. But it happened enough times where I could probably do like a medley of like 10 different videos, or if I look deep enough, and that's the FBI. So like I've
Mhm.
seen, or the U.S. Marshals actually,
The
well,
U.S.
they work in
Marshals are
conjunction,
great, yeah.
right?
But I think that there's a difference between the in-person stuff, which yes, that those people who do that are very brave, you know.
True, right?
But the cyberspace is where I've been kind of focusing my time and efforts because it's basically the Wild West, and
True.
we don't have enough like the bad guys are so ahead of the curve. Like our law enforcement capabilities do not match the criminals' ability to evade law enforcement in the cyberspace.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when
Well,
it
and
comes
also
to
actually,
that,
and on that though, I want to add, it's also these parents nowadays aren't actually involved enough in their kids' lives to actually be like helping them and training them and teaching them that these predators exist. It's almost
huge
like they're like,
advocate for that.
You can
Yeah.
you can handle this iPod or this
But the problem
iPad,
is like,
whatever.
that we should be talking about this on a national level. I
True.
don't know why our government doesn't prioritize things like this when they're trying to tell people the important things they need to know. Because, the problem is like, I don't like blaming parents because the parents, it's not like they knew about the dangers and let their kids do it anyways. There's a lot of people in our generation are
Hmm.
technologically incompetent. They're illiterate. They
True.
don't understand like what they don't think that it's possible for their kid to just press a button and go live. They have no idea. And so, every
Yeah.
time that I've spoken with the victim's parents, I get the same, they're just normal people. I hear the same thing. We thought this could never happen to us. And so I really caution people against having that attitude of closing off. And I know that's not what you're doing, but I hear this all the time. People
Yeah.
saying, well, it's the
Yeah. I'm not
parents'
putting the
fault. And
blame.
yeah,
Right.
but I do hear that a lot, and that's one thing that I'd like to change. I'd
Hmm.
like to hear people advocating for educating parents rather than condemning them. Because for one thing, it's like that's kind of dismissive to say, oh, well, it's the parents' fault. It's like,
Yeah.
that doesn't change the fact that there's a victim here, right? The kid's not the kid's
Yeah. Yeah.
fault, and
Well,
also
I think
it's
I think
yeah,
it's more me recognizing that it's part of the issue.
for
Like
sure,
I'm saying like
huge,
these parents aren't are ignorant in the internet and what a child is capable of.
yeah,
A lot of times a
and
child is a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and they find their
yeah.
way in to go
Oh
live
man,
on
I have a
Twitch.
6-year-old and I have no idea
Yeah.
how I have to monitor her YouTube usage because she'll find stuff and I'm just like, stop. No, you have to ask me before you watch any YouTube video. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, you can watch Ninja Kids and Fun Squad. That's it. If it's something
Mm.
else, you have to ask. And she knows because there was a situation on YouTube last year where we helped to basically get an international predator arrested. His name was Josiah Mizukami, and that's a nutso story.
Okay.
Alex Rosen from Predator Poachers actually stepped in and
Dude, Alex
made
is
the
great.
catch. And with our help, because we've been trying to. This guy was straight up on YouTube. We found him there. We he was in Malaysia. We got him to come back to the U.S. We got DHS involved. It was wild. But
When was
anyways,
this?
when this was last year, I've been meaning to make a video about it because nobody really has heard the full
Yeah.
story,
I feel
which
like
was
I feel
very.
like I am aware of it. Like
Matt
I feel
Walsh
like if you
retweeted
showed
my
me a
video
picture of
about
his
it.
face, I would be
Yeah,
like, yeah,
that
this
guy.
guy.
That you
Right.
probably have it burned into your memory because of his
Like
crazy
this mother.
eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was unfortunately very schizophrenic, and he's been arrested, and he's been deemed to be mentally incompetent to stand trial, and he's in a mental institution. So, and that's probably the
Wow.
best outcome. But that's a long
That's-
story.
Okay.
But whenever that happened, I brought my daughter in and I showed her this guy, and I was
Mhm.
like, "This is a bad guy," and she's like, "He doesn't look like a bad guy." I'm like, "They don't look like bad guys," because
That's
this
the
guy was a
point.
model, an actor in Malaysia. So like, yeah, he was in, that's me telling her like this is on YouTube, right? Like for a while, I didn't even let her watch YouTube because I was so mad that this guy had a kids channel.
Yeah.
But she knew what was going on. I mean, she doesn't, it's age appropriate stuff that I tell her, right?
Yeah.
All she knows is that they're bad guys. And it kind of in her mind, that's like, I could get taken from my parents or something and like snatched or whatever. But even 6 is old enough to teach them bad guys online can pretend to be good guys. They can pretend to be kids. So you
Yep.
don't ever talk to a stranger online, because talking to a stranger online is no different than a stranger in real life nowadays. The
You're
bad guys
correct.
don't sit in white vans anymore. They sit
Well, it's
online.
worse. It's
Yeah,
worse because you can't even get a sense of what like who they are at all, right? It's just
exactly.
a name on the with a profile picture
And they're
that means nothing.
good at getting these kids to think that they're other kids. And, they're
Yeah.
really, really sneaky and good at it. It's really
Yeah.
upsetting.
Well, thank you for. I know that you. I mean, you have a child, so I can imagine the fire to fight for children has
Ugh.
only gotten stronger. But let's switch gears a little bit and let's go further back. Now, I don't really know much about your guns side of it, right? It was BX Bullet for a long time, and you dropped the bullet part. But when I first saw you, like I don't remember what post it was. It was like a couple years ago, maybe. And you had your profile picture was like you holding like a bunch of guns, like sitting on the side out of a car or
Oh
something. I
yeah.
don't remember. And I was like, "What the heck is this?" Like, okay, so she's a professional shooter. So how'd you get into that?
So yeah, that was like so for about 10 years, I guess I was a competitive shooter. I shoot
Like
what's
John
called
Wick kind of shit? Ping,
well,
ping, ping, ping.
I have that. Yeah, have you
Ching, ching,
seen that
ching.
video where Keanu Reeves is
Where
going
he's
through the
practicing?
course? Yeah,
Oh
that
yeah.
with Taryn Butler. Yeah, so
Hmm.
those guys are that's kind of what it looks like when you do a competition. Like you've got this like, this course set up and they time you running through it. There's like I would also do what's called a run and gun biathlons where you would run like 15K, 15K with like a pack in your guns, and then you would be trail running, but then you would stop and do these courses and stuff. So it was very physical.
Cool.
And I was on the national 3-gun circuit. 3-gun is a pistol, rifle, shotgun competition, kind of like you
Okay.
saw John Wick doing with the pistol, and then you would, holster it and shoot the shotgun.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I mean, the gun community, the sporting sport shooting community is just amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I started my platform. Actually, was I was just had some extra time in the evenings, and I wanted to talk about guns and self defense because I'm also a self defense instructor, women's self defense, and a handgun instructor.
Nice.
And so I started my platform with that kind of stuff in mind, with self defense and guns. And hey, it's the same thing as now I do online safety too, because I realize how important that is. But I still do the guns and self defense talk and stuff. I'm on like a hiatus of the gun shooting because I ended up my body decided to just give up on me, and my shoulder, I blew my shoulder out at a championship match. And then I had
Oh
to
man.
get surgery on that, and I got surgery on my elbow, and it was just like this whole thing. So, but I do want to get back into it really soon. Like I should be ready to go.
What was the best like standing you ever did at any competition?
Well, I won the I have awards. See, yeah,
Ooh, what is top lady?
yeah.
And then what is that like an AR
This is the
there?
run
Some
and gun series. So yeah.
cool.
Well, yeah. So I won the 2019 run and gun championship in the ladies division. And that was the one where I blew my shoulder out, but I still ended up taking the trophy because I didn't even know till the next day that my shoulder was like separated from my
Yeah.
bicep tendon. But
Was that the
it
one where
was
you had to run like 15K or whatever?
it was a 10K, and I was
10K? Okay.
because I'm holding like all my ammo and all of my water and my mags and everything in a backpack. So it's like 40 pounds or so probably. And I'm
Wow.
small, so that's a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think I was
how tall are you?
5'7".
Okay. That's not. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's not. I
Well,
feel like that's
considering that
pretty.
like the other people in the competition are like 6 foot, like burly dudes, and that the percentage of body weight there is
Yeah.
important. You know what I mean?
So wait, are you going up against guys also, or is it just
Yeah.
kind of open?
Well, yeah. So there's
Because it's shooting. I mean,
there's a women's division. There's a top. Well, so
right.
now we could talk about the gender
Nowadays.
differences, right? But
Oh man.
men can naturally shoot guns better than women, and that's just because they
Oh, they
have
can.
larger upper body strength and they can mitigate recoil better,
Makes
and
sense.
it's
That
physical
makes
fact.
sense. Okay.
But that said, I mean,
You
I know
bigot. You're
some,
a bigot now, by the way.
the thing is that this only really applies to the top level of professionals, right? I
Okay.
could still beat most men, right? Because I'm a better shooter. I pull the trigger better, right?
Right.
But at the higher levels, it does come down to who can sprint the course fastest, who can do the
Okay.
obstacles fastest. And obviously, that's not me. I'm clumsy as hell. I'm a good
Right.
shot, but I'm not good at like obstacles. And I would just do it for fun, basically. But because of my shooting is very proficient, then I was able to kind of overcome some of the physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Well, 10 years
yeah.
as a profession, like doing competitive
Well,
shooting,
with
we'll
a
we'll give that to you.
profession, like, okay, so there's like a pro circuit, right? But
Okay.
very few of us actually make money, like a
Okay.
living doing
Hardcore
it. Yeah.
hobby. Right?
Yeah.
Is that
It's
better?
a pro circuit because well, there's cash prizes and stuff,
Okay.
but there's amateur and then there's pro. I was pro
Yeah.
circuit for about 2 years on a sponsored team where I'd wear a jersey and I got a lot of like basically got stuff given to me, for free, like ammo, gun
Yeah.
parts, and
That's pretty sweet. Getting free
yeah,
ammo
because it's an
when you
expensive
shoot guns.
hobby.
Yeah, shooting because bullets. I mean, especially nowadays. My goodness.
Hmm.
Because I got a gun in 2020, just like a shit ton of other Americans for the first time, and I saw the price of bullets go
Crazy.
up probably 200% from
Yeah.
like when I first got it to like because I got a couple others, and then it was just like holy shit! Like I remember this one box was half the price.
Yeah.
More than that. It's
And I
crazy.
and I reload, right? So when I have somebody like make my ammo for me, so
Hmm.
I save by buying like actual bullets. Like the bullet's actually just a little part that goes at the end of the round, right?
Right.
We
Yeah.
call it
Right. Right.
bullets, and I don't, whatever. But the actual bullet itself, though, the cost of those and the availability of them too, you couldn't find primers because people were stockpiling. So
Yeah.
you were scrounging around for your spent shell casings and trying to, desperately reload ammo for cheaper. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a problem. That's a barrier to a lot of people. If you
I
can't get a
never
sponsorship or whatever.
I never understood the whole collecting, all your spent bullets
Well,
because
that's
when you pick
why.
up, well, when you pick, yeah, well, hold on, I'm not done. When you pick up those spent bullets,
Mhm.
the hammer and the firing pin pokes like a little dent, and
So
doesn't
that's the
that like that
primer.
mech? Oh, the primer.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
there's
you could
so
replace that.
you punch out the primers and then you're
I
left with
see.
just the
Okay.
shell. But you can only
Okay.
reload them so many times before they start to crack and stuff. So, you
Right.
know,
Okay, that makes sense.
but yeah, that's why that we collect them because then we don't have to buy, new brass casings. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're saving that money. Yeah, I
a little
follow
bit.
Felix Ammunition. I
Yeah.
met them in Maryland. He came out and actually gave Tim like a full-on ammo building kit. It was freaking cool. And but he was cool and he's super based and good follow
Is
on
that
X.
Phoenix or Felix?
Is it Phoenix? Yeah, I'm
Phoenix? Oh,
sorry,
I know you're
Phoenix. Phoenix.
FEN. Yeah, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
Phoenix, not Felix.
Yeah,
Sorry
they're good
about.
guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're great. Always doing funny things on their ammo bags.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So you miss it, obviously, right? You want to get back into it.
I do, yeah. Well, the weather was also like I'm in Texas and it was like 100 degrees for like 100 days. And I swear to you, I didn't even leave my house. It was
Yeah.
awful. So now the weather's nice. I'm thinking about going back out. I've got tons of ammo. I just gotta get out there and start shooting again. I've noticed that like, I've had to take breaks before for injury or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like riding a bike, right? You get right back into it. Now, I'm not going to say your proficiency doesn't degrade because it does, but when you're at a
Yeah.
certain level, it'll come back. Sometimes you need
Yeah.
a good break. Sometimes you get in your like shooting is very much a mental sport. So like if you're rattled and you're kind of really nervous, like it's all about relaxing yourself and keeping yourself calm so you can
Hmm.
focus while you're in the middle of something very intense. And so a lot of times, you know, like for me being on the pro circuit was a lot of stress, a lot of pressure because you're wearing a jersey and people are expecting a certain performance out of you. And
Yeah.
I had less fun than when I used to just go with my friends and not really care about where I placed and just try to get better, you know?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that my performance would decline kind of. And so I stepped away from the pro circuit. I don't think I would go back to that. I think that I would just do it for fun again.
Right on. Right on. And did you make videos of you
Oh yeah.
shooting? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They're on
So
my
you'd
Instagram.
probably
You can
go
watch.
back.
Yeah, they're on my
Okay.
Instagram. I mean, they were on my YouTube, but you know.
So what? Yeah, that's good that you brought that up because I didn't know you were actually yeeted off of YouTube. What caused that?
So kind of when I was mentioning, you know, like after the child predator story broke,
Yeah.
that same week I got attacked by like I mean, I could name creators, but I won't, like, because I don't think that they were, I don't think that it was spearheaded by them. I think it was spearheaded by somebody else. And I don't
Okay.
know why. But I think that
Hmm.
the goal was to kind of just like trap me into weird battles with people and get people to attack me for weird stuff. It's kind of hard to
Okay.
explain because I don't really understand it. But like, for
Well,
example,
can
I
I?
had people going into other people's channels and
Mhm.
pretending to be my mods and trying to start stuff or making fake Twitter accounts, making fake Discord accounts, pretending to be me and trying
Yeah,
to
that's
start.
happened to me.
Yeah. So
I know that vibe. Mhm.
yeah, so that happened and it, but I think that, and I don't know that it was related to the predator thing, although it happened the same week. So I got spooked because I didn't, because also, you know,
Right.
I guess I didn't mention, but like before that Bloomberg expose came out and they did their own investigation on the work that we kind of already started, right? And what Bloomberg uncovered with their, you know, they have way more powerful research tools than I have.
Sure.
And so they were the ones who put out that 280,000 children targeted figure. I had no idea that there were that many. I had no idea that what I was looking at was that scale.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of terrifying, you know, because
Yeah.
now I'm like, well, this is like an organized criminal ring. Like, and I've been attacking them unknowingly for like a year, right?
Right.
Or 6 months or so. And so when I started to get attacked like that, and I got like some threats and some spooky stuff, it was a lot. And that's when I lost my YouTube channel too. My YouTube got banned, and I'm not sure. At the time, I was also working on that Highland Park shooting investigation. What's interesting is just this last couple of days, I've seen Steven Crowder and a couple of other people come out and say that their YouTube was flagged for the same reason they gave me, which was violent criminal organization policy. And so that's
Oh, that's weird.
interesting because now I'm wondering if, like, you know, it had to do with the videos I was doing about that shooting, even though they never told me what video broke the rules. They just took down I think I had probably 8,000 subscribers, maybe. And I
Okay.
was a partner channel, and my channel was really taken off. And
Yeah.
I had no strikes, no warnings. They just removed my channel. They refused to talk to me about it, refused to tell me what video broke the rule. To this day, they've not given me my channel back. So,
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, well, I know a little something about, the big tech behemoth being against you, right? I mean, I have 12 strikes currently on my
whew,
channel in the 3 years that I've had it. Four is election misinformation, which has all now since been proven true. Four are medical misinformation, which I can't really talk about, but still,
yeah,
unfortunately. One was for hate speech because I was calling out some guy that was trying to get in a sorority, and that was stupid. And then a couple others for some copyright bullshit. But I mean, I feel like once you're on their radar, then you instantly go into this other bracket. And I can only imagine if you're pissing off someone that I think they're working with. Like that wouldn't
right,
surprise me. Like I feel
yeah,
like there is this elite system
uh
of
huh.
people that control stuff that have their hands in that stuff
I
and
do
like
too.
probably pull from that themselves. So like you got someone like you, they're like, you know what, this girl's just a pain in our ass. We need her gone. Okay. And
Yeah.
that's what they
You
do.
know,
And
and that's crazy because, like that's what was so weird is like I've heard a lot of people say exactly what you've said too. But like most people haven't ever experienced just like someone just getting banned without any strikes, just like something that was severe, like severe enough for them to pull everything off, which in my opinion, there was nothing that would even come close to that. So there was really no, even if like, and I wasn't talking about a trans shooter manifesto or whatever, like, you know, like I think that's one of those things that's like, and I'm not justifying it. I think that all of this stuff should be fine for anybody to talk about. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I can see why YouTube did, I can see why they did it, but like, that doesn't surprise me that they did it. Right.
Right.
And so if they had given me a reason, I'd been like, oh, that's not surprising. But I racked my brain for a year trying to figure out what they could have considered to be so bad that they, you know, had to nuke my entire channel and salt the earth. And I mean, they even banned my Google account. Like I couldn't even like not my Google didn't ban my account, but I could no longer log on to YouTube with my Google account, and it was connected to all my smart TVs. So,
oh no.
So my daughter, she's like, Mom, YouTube's not working. I'm like, I don't know how to fix the TV unless I do a factory reset or whatever. So then she went to the playground later that day and she told all her friends that Mommy got banned from YouTube and now we're banned from YouTube. I'm like, shh.
Oh God. Oh no.
So yeah, it was like some whole thing. Like, yeah.
Well, that could go one of two ways. Like you could even either be seen as really cool, like whoa, you got banned
your
from
mom's
YouTube,
cool. Yeah.
or the opposite, where
their parents are probably going to be like, why? You know?
Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know if I want my kids going over to their place anymore.
Exactly.
It's like, no, I just don't even know why. I mean, I think we know why though, right? They don't tell you, but
yeah, I mean, like you said, like, you know, if they had given me a reason and said it was because of the shooter you did, or this video you did about a mass shooter, but because they didn't give me any reason, it makes me even more suspicious that, like you said, there was somebody pulling strings. And I've even talked to people I know who work at YouTube who said the same thing. They're like, usually when somebody gets a ban like yours, we can't even see the reason. They just put something there that says no. You know, so like,
really?
Yeah, so you're basically just like blacklisted to the point where like even because I was talking to partner support and they were escalating it to the in-person review team or whatever. But even those people don't see the reason. They just see a no blacklist. And so no one except for the person up above who basically orchestrated the ban, nobody can undo it except for that person.
Is that what they told you? Like you had just a big NO in that's stamped on your freaking account?
My friend who works for YouTube said, but I don't know. Okay. Like that's what he said. When you see something that's like no strikes, no warnings, just gone, and they refuse to tell you why, he's like, that's usually means that like they can't tell you why because they don't know.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So you don't know for a fact that that's what happened to you, but you know, based on someone that worked at YouTube, that it happens. That's what they do.
And it's unusual, he said, to see that. Wow. Usually that's left for like terrorist organizations and stuff, right? Like, or things that are like kind of sensitive information that for whatever reason, somebody up there. And that's why when you mention the Twitter files, you know, that to me should have been the biggest story of, of huge. And it should have
nationwide, international, like it's
absolutely caused us to say what other platforms are doing this, because we knew that they were, and that like the Twitter files was not surprising. And in fact, I was laughing because back in June of last year, I was posting, to nobody like I usually do, just screaming into the void, but about how I was watching the FBI testify in front of Congress that they needed more funding to try to manage, all of the disinformation in the wake of the Capitol riot. So they were using that to justify an expansion of authority and expansion of funding to monitor social media. And so I was like, hey, ding, 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 like sirens going off, like red flags. What is this? Like, they already, they're saying they don't have enough authority to surveil social media. And so then like 6 months later, the Twitter files came out and we're like, now can we like stop and actually analyze this problem? Because this is a huge, this is like on the level of COINTELPRO, if you're familiar, because I'm a huge historical conspiracy nerd.
No, what's that? COINTELPRO. Tell us about it.
COINTELPRO was an FBI operation back in the 60s and 70s, probably as far back as the 50s, where they were trying to infiltrate and destroy from the inside all kinds of subversive movements, which back then was the leftists. It was the civil rights movement. It was, the Black Panthers. It was women's rights. It was the Communist Party. Anything that they felt was subversive, they were infiltrating and basically posing as party members and pitting them against each other. It was a huge operation. They tried to convince Martin Luther King to kill himself.
Oh, okay. I did
you
hear
know,
that they tried to do that. Okay, so we got white hate groups, New Left, Puerto Rican groups, Black extremists, Hoodwink, Cuba, Socialist Workers Party, espionage
I love how
programs.
they say extremists when really it was just like any civil rights movement. But yeah,
Yeah,
the
pretty much.
closest
They
the
could probably
FBI
fit
websites are like,
anyone into
yeah.
any of these categories, and it doesn't actually have to
Yeah.
make sense.
So, but it was so it was actually my favorite part about this story is how it was exposed
Hmm.
because this was before, and it's funny because if you talk about this kind of stuff, I've had a lot of leftists come into my chat and be like, "You're a conspiracy theorist." I'm like, they were targeting you. like
Yeah,
this was you guys were the target back then,
yeah.
and so there was a lady and her husband, and they were just like normal people. You can look them up. But they had something called the Citizens Committee to investigate the FBI.
Okay.
And it was just basically a group of concerned citizens. And you can look her up. Her name is Bonnie Raines. She's got this awesome picture of her just
Why does
holding her
that
little
sound
baby,
familiar?
looking like a totally normal person. Well, these people conducted an operation to break into an FBI field office and steal records from a vault and leak them to the press that exposed COINTELPRO, and ended up going
Shit.
in front of the church committee, which actually resulted in a lot of people getting, it was a huge thing because it was like, yes, we knew that you were doing it. Here's the proof you were doing it.
Yeah.
And then at that time, Congress actually put some like limitations on the authority that the FBI could have. So it was,
Wow.
and it took these like normal looking people, this housewife and her husband to actually, break a law to expose this stuff. And now they didn't even come out because they were afraid of getting murdered. But
Wow.
they came out like about 10 years ago. I think that Bonnie's husband is passed, but they just unveiled a statue of them the other day because I mean they're basically the Snowdens of their time. They really
Wow.
did come out and expose what was going on there. And so now it's happening again. We're letting history repeat itself. We're not holding them accountable. This should be our cue to like really advocate for oversight and transparency and
Yeah.
limitation of authority.
What do you think the best course of action to get to that, to being able to hold them accountable? Like, what can an
Well,
average person do?
it's very, very, very. I mean, yeah, I'm an average person, and
Yeah.
I'm not being very effective, I'm sure. But I've always kind of laughed because, I mean, I'm a memer. I meme, and I'm not very professional. So I always joke that like I'm totally the wrong person to get these important messages out. Like,
Yeah.
because I've just never really felt like I was like I'm very good at researching, investigating because I am also a professional investigator. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't
Um,
know.
well, I'm a private investigator. So I'm licensed in Texas to do private investigation.
Oh,
And
legitimate. So when did
yeah.
that start?
Well, I've been a private investigator for a really, really long time. But and
Okay.
that's separate from this, but I just enjoy internet research. Like researching people online is like the first thing I do when I'm, working on a case. So
Okay.
and now I've kind of developed that into a lot of OSINT skills. And I have a little ad hoc team of people who've been helping me kind of research into some of these things. And some of the research we've been doing into like mass shootings and stuff kind of rolls into that.
Mm.
And, I think that getting these big stories out there and start getting people to start realizing that, the story, the picture is actually so much bigger than we think. And unfortunately, I always say that the algorithm did this, but I don't really know, right? I just think that people are very
I
easily
think it's a combo.
distracted. Yeah,
Oh, 100%. No,
well, it's
I
like
want to
the
say no. The
sensationalist
combination,
stuff,
the combination of the algorithm and the people that have their fingers connected to the strings that are
right?
connected to the algorithms,
And they've
right?
almost made it like a self moderating machine because what happens is that these big influencers, I'm not going to get a lot of like clicks from talking about this chick story. It's not sensational enough, even though it's
Right.
super important, right? But it's not sensational enough. It's not going to catch their attention enough. And so they know that they need to focus on these trending stories. What's trending? That's trending. I need to comment on that, right?
Right.
And if
Or
something's not trending, they're
what
not going to comment on
triggers
it.
or what triggers someone, what pisses someone off, because like that's
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
it.
And that
Like
goes
the
trending,
clickbait.
right?
I
So
hate
it's
that
like
shit.
this
I can't
machine where
stand
like
it.
they're getting it trending. And now this, what we're getting is this inflammatory kind of bogus news that's really distracting us. And the
Yep.
important smaller voices basically just kind of go under the radar. So, I think it's hard to actually fix that because it affects these guys' bottom line, like the real big, the really, really big guys, right? It affects their bottom line to kind of focus on these smaller stories.
Yeah.
But the stuff that we're doing, it's affecting policy, So, this is the
I'd
kind of
like to
stuff
hope.
that's
I'd
actually
like to think
changing
so.
stuff.
I'd like to think so. Well, that makes me. I want to talk. This is why I really wanted you to come on today, is because you actually brought something to my attention. Now, I knew about this is the Highland Park shooter, right, from in Illinois.
Yes.
So I'm from Illinois actually, and I'm not that far from Highland Park. Like I've been to Highland Park. I know where it is, and
Mhm.
it's crazy to think that it's like that's really close. And I've got a lot of family that lives in not necessarily that area, but close by, close enough that like why couldn't it have happened? You know,
Right.
over
And
where
it's a
my
nice
family's at.
area, safe
Yeah,
area.
Highland Park's really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, exactly. So, it's really crazy to think about. And, now we've got this, I call it the Tranifesto, which I guess that's kind of like the moniker now. We're finally seeing that, and it's kind of back in the media. And for me, I'm always like, they're probably on SSRIs because that tends to be the case on all these shooters. They tend.
That's actually something that I have not I don't think that's true.
No, you don't think
Um
so?
no, it's kind of weird because like and I don't fault anybody for thinking these things because it's what
Yeah.
you see all the time. It's these things that just keep getting parroted.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I've done
I heard that it was. I heard that it was like 80% of like the school mass shooters were on
well, and
SSRIs.
it's hard because if I can't see their data, it's hard for me to
I guess it's
actually
hard to
like,
prove it.
so I have my own
Yeah.
data and what my data shows, and it's my data is cherry picked to
Yeah.
only
Yeah, yeah.
include these kinds of indiscriminate mass shootings. But regardless of the percentage, it's a bad argument because,
True.
let's say that you have, well, like let's all agree that if you're going to go shoot a bunch of people indiscriminately, you're not mentally sane. You're a mentally ill person, right?
Okay, good
So,
point.
like,
Yeah,
the
obviously.
confounding variable there is that those people are more likely to have sought treatment for mental illness in the past and therefore more likely to have been on SSRIs in the first place, right?
Right, right, right.
And
Okay.
then the other issue with this is that medical records like that are seldom actually released, and so the data that we have on this is very limited. We wouldn't really even know if the person was on SSRIs, especially if they're still alive and that record has been sealed because of a plea
Mm-hmm.
deal. So, when people say that they know these data, like I've sought out this data and it's behind redacted court records. So they
Okay.
might be relying on like kind of unreliable witness statements, which I've seen the media put witnesses out that I can't even confirm these people are real. Like
Wow.
people will
Really?
they'll flock to the media to try to be like, I knew this person. And, I remember that blah, 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 but this isn't actually a verifiable, credible
Not
source,
credible. Right.
and
Okay.
unfortunately, these are the things that stick in people's heads and they become fact, and now we see a bunch of people blaming SSRIs when I could make an argument. Let's say 60% of shooters that I looked at were on SSRIs. Well, how do I know that the other 40% may not have committed a shooting if they had been on medication? How do I know the opposite isn't true, right? There's a paradoxical statement to make where,
Good
how
point.
do I know that those people weren't just mentally ill and they needed to be? And I just don't think that it's useful because I think, most, I don't want to kind of force a cause and a blame on something that's kind of an external factor when I know pretty much right now what's causing an increase in at least the most recent crop of mass shootings. And that's what our
Hmm.
research has really been focused on. And I think everything else is a distraction. And I don't know why. I don't know why we're not actually talking more about the actual causes.
Yeah.
But it seems like the Tranifesto, right? This person was just mentally ill. I don't think that there's
Agreed.
any like utility in it's trying to say, well, it's because they believe, I mean, you're really off the deep end at this point, because this person just mentally ill. And yeah, they had a lot of hate, but those people who have hate for any reason are very vulnerable to these kind of radical ideologies and these radical notions of violence. And so, you can talk about that. We can talk about how people being driven to hate a certain group of people leads to violence, right? We should talk about that, but you can't just cherry pick the leftist one. You have to also talk about the ones who did it because of, white supremacy or immigration, hate for immigration or neo-fascist stuff. So you have to talk about it as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And that's a much deeper discussion about, radicalization in general.
Well, let's talk about this Highland case, though. So this, you've been talking to the dad. Now, can you talk about it? I know you have public information out there already, and I think you make a good point that this is really an attack at 2A, right? I mean, it's them trying to go after and make laws and set precedents
Oh, yeah.
for taking Americans' rights away.
Yeah.
So break it down for us.
Yeah, so I have and I have some, I don't know if I sent you the link to my Rumble channel, but I have a bunch of videos there that might, if people want more information, they can watch them
I have
about
your
this
link tree,
particular
or it's not a
thing.
link tree, it's whatever you on
I
your
don't think
Twitter
Rumble's on
profile.
there, but
I don't
I
think it is
I
either,
can send it to
actually.
you. Yeah, I need to update. I just started that Rumble channel like a few days ago, so I need to update my links. But
That's okay.
yeah,
I'll add it actually while you're talking.
okay.
Right
Yeah.
right
So
now.
I've been involved in this case since the beginning, since day one when it happened. I was in the shooter's Discord server. We were, this guy, this
You were
shooting
in
was
the
just,
Discord server.
well,
Wow.
I
Okay.
joined it because we found the guy because they announced it when there was a manhunt going out for him. And he was the Awake the Rapper one. If you'll remember, he was like had a huge, like a bunch of
Yeah.
weird music videos and stuff. And this one was one that would just take up over a year of my life because the weirdness behind it and all of the weird stuff that was going on in the background, it was really a compelling and interesting true crime case, if nothing else, right? But then I started to get more involved with what was happening because I put out some videos about it, and the parents contacted me to say, like, thank you for being the only person who's actually investigating this, because there was a lot of fake news, like saying that he was on SSRIs, for example. He wasn't. Most people will be like, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. He was on SSRIs. Tucker Carlson said it, and it wasn't
Wow.
true. So, it just goes to show you that, like, some of this stuff that gets out there is just not factual. And the parents had also just been absolutely demonized and in the press. And obviously people are blaming them. But I got to kind of talk to the dad a bit and really empathize with him, because I think he's just a harmless suburban dad. And
Yeah.
he's obsessed now with trying to figure out what happened, right? What happened to his kid. And so it was a whole new perspective for me. And well, about, I guess in December of last year, they announced they were charging the dad with 7 felony charges of
Crazy.
reckless conduct, one for each person killed by the alleged shooter, because his son is still in jail. He has not had a trial, and he's pled not guilty. So he's presumed innocent, right? They wanted to, but
That's how
then
it
they
used
want
to
to put
be.
the dad on trial, right? And my question to his lawyers is like, how are you even letting this trial go forward? Because this guy's guilt is contingent on the guilt of somebody who's presumed innocent. Like, so it's seems to be a constitutionally invalid, right?
Right.
But the prosecutors, they really did want to make this a precedent-setting case. And all the dad did, of course, the media also made it seem like, oh, he bought the kid the guns, and then his kid turned around and shot people. But that's not the facts. Again, what happened is that when the son was 19, he signed a co-signer thing to allow him to get a gun license before he was 21. When he did the shooting, he was almost 22. He was about to turn 22 years old. So he was
Okay.
a full-grown adult, and this is 3 years later. And he could have just bought a gun himself.
Right. He
So,
didn't need
like,
his
how do you
dad's
prove
signature anyway.
cause? Yeah. And so the whole case to me is just like a joke. But the thing is that most people, and I have a video about this explaining it, right? But no, I'm the only person who's actually put that story out. The media, Fox News is talking about it, and they're all just running with the same incorrect information, right? And they're putting this false narrative out there. that again, everybody, unless you've seen my video and you go, what? Well, that's crazy. Why would they say the opposite of that, right? Everybody else just thinks that what they hear on the news is fact, because why wouldn't you? You have to believe something, you know? Yeah. And so I've been helping the dad a little bit, but what happened last week is, I mean, I was gonna fly out to sit in the trial. It was gonna be a televised trial. It was supposed to last a week. So they're making a media circus about it, right? Because they want this to be a big case to set a precedent. He took a plea deal on Monday morning within the first 10 minutes. So I had to cancel my trip to Chicago. And the plea deal,
you thought he was going to fight it.
Yeah, because he's not guilty. And also because the trial is completely invalid constitutionally. And because I knew that the witnesses that the prosecution was going to call, they were extremely weak and flimsy. Like there was a guy they were trying to call who remembered something the son had said when he was in the 9th grade, which was 7 years ago. And there's no one to corroborate it. So all the defense has to do is be like, do you even remember like where was your address 7 years? You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell you my address 7 years ago.
One random sentence that was said by this guy. Wow.
Exactly. And so there's all these like really weak, it was a weak case. So I was looking forward to the defense just absolutely demolishing the prosecution there, but the prosecution didn't let it happen. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, right? I believe they did coerce him or honestly railroad him and almost force him to take a plea deal. And I'm hoping that he fights it. I know that he's not happy. I hope that he fights it because, I mean, this is an innocent person that was basically forced to say he was guilty. And because of that, the prosecution didn't have to call any of their weak witnesses, and now, of course, nobody's going to cover this part that I'm telling you on Fox News. My mom's like, I saw about the trial on Fox News last night. And I was like, what did they say? Oh, did he pled guilty? So now in everybody's mind, he just pled guilty and there's no more to the story.
Right.
But, I think what was very, very interesting was that the dad's lawyer actually said in a press conference that the prosecution at the last minute, I mean, it was less than 20 hours before the trial. The prosecution pitted the family against each other and forced him to take a plea deal to protect his family. So these were the words that came out. And I don't know how that doesn't make the ACLU. I don't know how, someone like that wouldn't get involved at that point, because that's a state prosecutor and you're alleging that they forced somebody to plea by, in order to protect their family and to protect his son's right to an impartial jury. Because the defense was, because the discovery from the son's trial was being used before his trial, which, is basically exposing all of that evidence to the public, which does affect his, that's why when you have somebody who's awaiting trial, you try to keep those investigation records kind of tight, right? Because you don't want everybody seeing the evidence ahead of time, because you muddy up the juror pool and everybody sees it. It becomes a big national thing. And now he can't get an impartial jury. But it just really shows you how you can't believe any of these narratives you hear. You really have to be the person, like you have to be me investigating it for a year to figure out like what's going on and who's telling the truth and what media narratives are incorrect. No one has time to do that, And so I think, we should hold the media accountable for that kind of error, right? I think that they should have to retract incorrect information. And like, I'll give you an example, the Lewiston, Maine shooting, right? I went to bed that night. They said that there were 80 people shot, 22 people dead and 80 people shot and a confirmed baby dead, which is, I go to bed that night almost crying, thinking about this. How many other millions of people went to bed crying, thinking about this? The next day we wake up, 13 killed, which 12 killed, I think, which is still terrible, obviously. 13 injured, and that's it. No baby, no 80 shot, right? And
big difference.
It's a big difference. And, are you going to retract that? Because how many people are just like, are going to sit here and use this argument next time they're arguing about mass shootings? Well, how could somebody shoot 80 people? And you're like, well, that didn't even happen.
Do you think it would make a difference? Like, do you, I mean, I've seen people retract things and it makes no difference.
That's because they don't get nearly as much engagement. Yeah. And I showed this too with the raw alerts. They had retracted it or they had changed their statement, but they had over 2 million impressions on their first tweet. and only
Right.
about 400,000 on the retraction. So, it's impossible to actually, that's just that's the problem with trying to get breaking news out. You can't get news that's fast and accurate. It just doesn't work like that.
That's true. I mean, look at the whole Israel Palestine, like everything everything that they say on either side the next day it's different, right? And it's like I'm not taking sides. I just have seen stories coming from both sides of the aisle that are horrible, and then turns out they're not right, and then some other horrible thing actually happened. But it's like it's still just horrible all around. But
Yeah.
the fact that it's just nothing is accurate at all.
Yeah, and this is
It's
something that
crazy.
we've been talking about on my show because I'm a big old school AI nerd. So I was into AI like
Okay.
20 years ago before Facebook started. Back
Okay.
then, I'm kind of old. I'm older than you think I am, probably.
How, I
Um,
mean, where you want to say it or
I'm 39. I just turned
okay?
39.
Just
um,
turned. Oh, so you're
yeah.
young.
But like 20 years ago, I was like 18, 19 and really into to this AI kind of world. And back then we thought there'd be robots, right? We thought there'd be robots that were indistinguishable from humans, which is
Right.
kind of a cool reality. But
iRobot.
instead we get this dystopian, whatever the hell this is with the bot farms, which are
Yeah.
basically the same thing, right? But we've been talking about how, say, 10 years ago on the internet, we felt like the internet had demystified the world because now we have this user generated content where people can live stream anything and like you can see it straight from the source rather than from the news, right? But
Right.
now obviously that's been circumvented, and now we have this rise of AI and deepfake technology, such that we're getting to a point where no one's going to believe anything anymore. And we've been saying the next terror attack, the next war, the next there's going to be something that happens where people stop and go, what's real, what's AI, that's AI, and no one knows anymore what's real and what's fake because now we have AI indistinguishable from
Yeah.
reality. And so we've
Well, and
called this the
CGI,
remystification.
the
Yeah.
remystification. I
Yeah,
was just gonna say
remystification.
CGI and movies and TV shows and the internet and everything is desensitizing everyone to violence, to blood, to horror atrocities that we're seeing. That it's like it's becoming normalized almost to the fact that like people are just like, oh yeah, another mass shooting in Chicago, huh? I mean,
Right,
well, they
that's
don't
true
call them mass
too.
shootings
That's true too.
anymore.
You know,
And it's really a shame, right? The
yeah.
human brain isn't designed to take all the information that we're bombarding it with.
Yeah. And
Like,
eventually people are going to stop
mhm,
caring. Or
true.
especially if they don't know
Apathy.
what's real and what's fake,
Yep.
it becomes like, well, I don't know what's real, and the problem with
Mm-hmm.
that is that now people have plausible deniability for massacres and genocides. Well,
Right.
that's AI, that's not real. And how do we know, right?
We're
So,
seeing
yeah,
that
you're right.
daily.
It's
Well,
yeah,
and you
so
said it earlier. What we need people to do is to see the big picture, to be able to step back and not be focused in on one little thing, but take a step back and like look at where all the dots are connecting. That's
really
almost
got to lift the
impossible.
veil. It's
It's
hard.
nearly impossible because people are working their lives, they have their
Yeah,
own stresses, they're dealing with life, it's like
exactly.
how can you expect the just the regular person to like go, "You know what? I'm going to actually really research and see
You
where all the
know,
dots are connected."
and
Just
I
like,
can tell you
"Damn."
personally, I mean, I have a full-time job at a kid, and
Yeah.
I got so in like this is all I've done with my free time for the last 2 years. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's really actually it's been really bad for my dating life, okay? Like it's actually been my social life has suffered, okay?
Yeah, I
No,
believe
I
it.
can't expect anybody else to do this because it's like borderline an obsession and it's kind of unhealthy, right? So in order to really get to that level, that to really start peeling back the layers and really seeing what's truly going on is difficult, which is why I despite kind of wanting to step down from social media a lot, I have this thought all the time of just like throwing my phone off a cliff and moving to the woods, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's important for me to keep talking to people about the things that I've seen in my experiences, because if you can trust me and you can get to know me and my content, then maybe some people can start to think about the things that I'm saying and go, yeah, maybe she's right. I have noticed, X, Y, Z, and so I am continuing to try to kind of get this new perspective out there, and hopefully people will start thinking again for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you got to feel there is something in the air that's changing, right? I mean, the general sense of everyone is moving towards the I'm sick of this woke shit. I'm sick of these people pushing their ideology on me, their morals on me, you know, on other people, and how it's ingrained in everything. Movies, media, politicians, like everything. It's everywhere you look, and people are kind of
Right.
fed up with it. And
Yeah.
I've seen a couple different examples of uh, reality versus what's on Twitter, right? Or
Right.
what's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's an eye opener. I think people are finally waking up and going, you know what? I think I'm gonna homeschool. You know, school choice is a
Yeah.
huge I really like school choice a lot, and I think it needs to be a thing. And it's like a wildfire right now in America, which is awesome because the education system sucks.
It does.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm lucky to live in like a smaller town in Texas that's like, I
yeah.
where I'm happy, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if I live in the general Austin area, like some of those schools, oh,
Oh, like in Austin proper?
yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And yeah, I do feel like, people are getting fed up with all of that, what you're saying, right? And it's not working. I don't know why they keep trying to force it on us. Like it's really not. It's
Yeah.
not taking. And the other problem with the whole disinformation, fake news kind of stuff is that I do feel like that word has gotten kind of conflated to mean, oh, anybody who doesn't go with the woke progressive is being called fake news. But there still
Right.
is fake news and disinfo out there, big
Oh yeah,
time. And
definitely.
so we can't, and it's hard because people are kind of conflating that term with something that's kind of akin to censorship, right? But yeah, that stuff is definitely out there. And I think that anytime that people are mad about something, that is going to be used as an opportunity to basically try to control people. So when people are super mad about woke progressivism ideology, right, it's very easy to grab them and steer them off course,
Yeah.
and use them to enact a political goal. And that's one thing that I've seen happening a lot, and I've been really worried about too, is like how these narratives are seized and used for political agendas. I hate that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I
and
agree 100%. And I follow a lot of more conservative sided minded people
mm,
on Twitter, and over the past 6 months, I mean, especially when Elon Musk made it monetizing your tweets like that, there was a complete shift.
right.
Um, but I mean, that's something different. But I mean, I see a lot of people. I don't want to name anyone, but that are you would think that the conservative, they're known, they're known. Suddenly, they're taking because I like to see both sides of things, and I like to know like the real story of what's happening. I see them twisting stuff the same way that I saw the left twisting
Yeah.
stuff, to try to
Yeah.
like manipulate it and make it
Yeah.
seem like, see, you got to be on our side. Our side
Yeah.
is 100% right and they're wrong. And I'm like, well, you're making me defend them? Like it's the same, it's like, what? Really? Come on. And I've lost a lot of respect actually for a few people that I've
I know
followed for a
exactly what
long
you mean.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a
You know,
shame.
and I say this because obviously, my I've been researching the mass shootings pretty heavily.
Hmm.
And every time there's a mass shooting, I've seen this back at the right is immediately trying to find a reason to blame the left. Left's immediately trying to find a reason to blame the right. And it's sad
Yep.
because it's like this is a tragedy. People died. And what they're doing is distracting from like people who are really trying to explain to people what's going on and how we can actually fix it. And so this is what I said the other day was that like it's no different to me when like the left tries to blame guns than when the right tries to blame trans people. I mean, these are not things that cause mass shootings, right? Just
Right.
because you might have had an outlier in one situation, that's what are you going to do about it, right? This isn't an actionable cause that we can actually talk about. It's a political narrative, and you can make an argument that it's still important to like I said earlier, it's still important to like know what motivated people, but you have to look at motivation as a whole. You have to look at the ones who are motivated by, white supremacy, for example. There's a lot of them. And so part of our research has been really just showing in a new light what's going on with these shootings, and trying to get people to pay attention, because it's really not conspiratorial. It's not surprising to anybody who follows, like, let's say, any of the counterterrorism agencies. They're all doing work in it, but for some reason they just don't want us to know. They don't want it to make the news. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, there's all these people that are like, every time it comes out a couple weeks later or like a week later, well, the FBI knew about this person. They were on their
Yeah.
radar, and then there's other people that are like, yeah, like the Alex Jones believers that are like, yeah, they put him up to it, right? That this person, oh, they were hearing words in their head and they
Yeah,
decided to go and do that. Like that guy in Maine, that
that's really
they
sad,
knew about him. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, are they using it? Is it some conspiracy to try to like enact gun laws to take guns away from Americans to, or they sacrificing these kids to the lambs? Like, is that,
Well,
or to the wolves? Is that what's happening? Like, I don't know.
Well, I
That's a
mean, I
conspiracy
know. I mean,
theory.
well, I think that that is a conspiracy theory, and it's used to delegitimize the discussion into this, which is somewhere in between, right?
Right. Okay.
So they're trying to take it to that really far extent, and it's what I've been trying to tell people, is that what our research has been showing, is that there is not every mass shooting is the same, right? Some people are just crazy. Like I think the
Yeah.
Lewiston Maine shooter might have been one of those that just had really bad mental problems. But then we have these shooters who you have these red flags each time, right? AR-15s, live streaming, manifestos. They were in the Discord server with some random suspicious person, right?
Yeah.
And those people, they are, from my research, being groomed by, I'm not going to say it's like, oh, it's feds. Like, I don't know that, but there's definitely terrorists that are, trying to use these vulnerable kids to enact terror attacks. And that's what they are. They're terror attacks.
Yeah.
It's actually something called accelerationism, militant accelerationism. It's been a
Right. Heard
hot
of
button
that.
topic in DHS counterterrorism work. There's tons of research on the subject if you just go look, right? But nobody talks about it for some reason. It's always these political narratives that are, like we talked about, the attention grabbing, rage bait stuff. No one's
Yep.
talking about, well, okay, that's great that we have the manifesto, but I want to know who they were talking to. I want to know who was in their Discord server. I want to know where they were looking at online, so that I can try to figure out, what they were being exposed to. Because in a lot of these cases, we've actually uncovered that these kids were being exposed to, basically terror cells. People, we don't know necessarily who they are. If I did, I probably wouldn't talk about it,
Yeah. Well, it's the
But
predators.
yeah,
We talked
yeah,
about earlier the Twitch predators. The syndicate that's going after kids to manipulate them in that direction. Well, then you got this, which is pretty much the same thing, but instead of going in that direction to abuse them, it's to use them to enact things that they want done, terrorist acts. It's
yes,
like
yes, they're
it's
grooming
people
them.
going after kids. In a
And
different
that's what you
fashion.
see a lot, not even just with shootings, but we've seen a lot of, like, we saw this one the other day. It was like, man arrested for making all these bomb threats, and they put this mugshot of him looking like a monster. We look into this kid, and this kid is honestly, and I say this in the nice way possible, like, he's just autistic really severely, right? You
Yeah.
can tell by his Facebook page, he's like a Jewish honor roll student and smiling in all these pictures. But when you hear him talk, you're like, okay, well, this kid had probably some developmental disabilities. And you're like,
Right.
why aren't we ever talking about that? Right? Why do we make them look like they're these far right terrorists? Like, how did this kid get that way? Because I know that he didn't self radicalize online. At
Okay.
this point, I know that he's been talking to people who, and the thing is that they're targets, just like kids are targets to child predators.
Yep.
Like people
That's
who
what I
are,
mean. Yeah.
yeah, people who are loners, who are mentally ill already, who are already members of hate groups, maybe, or are, autistic, or developmentally disabled. Those people are really, really targeted by these kinds of predators who want to convince them to commit terror attacks. And I don't know why we're not talking about it more. Because, like, you could find Senate expert panels on this topic. It's not like it's a conspiracy or anything. It's just for some reason the mainstream doesn't want to actually talk about this. I don't know why. That's the
Yeah.
mystery to me, you know?
I think it's because they're not trying to fix it. They're just trying to use it. both sides, right?
Yeah.
The left
Political
wants
agenda.
certain things done, and I mean the right wants certain things done, and they see this happen, and I mean we
You know what?
see it in their reactions. They're reacting and blaming, like, oh, if we had more
Exactly.
power,
Yes. And you
this
know
wouldn't
what's
happen
unfortunate
anymore.
is that's exactly what they're trying to do. Like that's what the terrorists want to do, which is why they use specific aesthetics and why they
Mm,
exploit certain types of hate groups because their goal is to make Americans fight with each other. They want us to fight over gun control in particular, which is why they're getting these kids to use AR-15s.
right.
You know, all of this stuff is kind of designed so that they know that it's going to create a huge political rift because if we're fighting each other, right, we're not holding the government accountable. We're not paying attention to what's going on. We're not watching them infiltrate and subvert our communities. We're
Yeah.
too focused on, you know, attacking this person who's saying something mean on Twitter. And so that's actually, you know, we're helping the terrorists do exactly what they've been trying to do, which is diminish our democracy. And it's
Yeah. They'll
unfortunate.
destabilize the country. I don't know.
Yes.
I hate the word democracy. I think it's because democracy is trash.
That's
And
true. You know, I always say
uh,
like to really be a democracy, we'd have to have informed voters, right?
well,
And we don't have that
well, there's a
even.
reason we're a republic too, because democracy is
Right.
just mob rule, and like mob
Exactly.
rule, that's actually what Democrats really want. Like they want that because if it's just a popular vote, then they would have they would Trump would have never have won, Hillary Clinton would have won, and then America probably would have been in a much worse case now
Yeah,
than
I,
ever.
I agree.
You
I
know,
mean, I think democracy is probably the wrong word, but like, you know, they're trying to undermine our political system. They're trying
that's
to
facts. That's
control it,
facts. Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're
I
trying
get
to,
triggered when I hear
yeah.
democracy. I'm like, oh,
You know,
we're
and
not a
like, you know, I
democracy.
get the same way about two parties. Like there's more than two parties. We're just not voting for
Yeah,
them, right? But like,
that's
you know,
true.
but
Well, and the two
essentially
parties are
there are
really
two
just one.
parties. Right, exactly. But to the people, a lot of us are still like really these like very polarized. They want us to be more polarized. The
Mm-hmm.
farther they can tear us apart, and they
Yep.
know this really well. There's a concept they call reciprocal radicalization, which is
Okay.
basically where the right does something that pisses the left off, so the left gets more extreme in response. Right? They you know, if you punch them, they punch you just as hard, and then you punch them harder and harder and harder, and you split apart farther and farther and farther apart. People become more and more extreme, and there's this pulling effect because you know, we're trying to just, you know, instinctively. This is just they understand behavioral psychology so well.
Yeah.
They really do understand how to manipulate not just an individual person, but the masses as a whole, right? By exploiting our tendency to be tribalistic and polarized. And so that's what this whole algorithm thing does by not letting people talk rationally. Like I say this about Twitch. Like you know, whenever I started to talk to people on Twitch, like, you know, some of the creators like Destiny or whatever, thinking that like maybe we could have a good discussion because this is
Yeah.
what I like. I don't mind if you disagree with me. I just want to have a discussion, right?
Yeah.
But
The
it's
nuance.
this blood sports and these like, you know, no, I'm right and you're wrong and you're also an idiot and a loser and a whore. And then you're like, where did that, you know, this isn't like
Great.
productive. We're not
Great
doing
conversation.
anything good for the country this way, right? But when I
Yeah.
start to talk to these people, they don't like me because I too nuanced, I guess, and they're like, that makes too much sense. You must be, you know, on OnlyFans or something. I don't
I think a
know.
lot of people are allergic to logic and allergic to civil discourse and nuanced conversations because it forces you to think. And more importantly, it forces you to step out of your comfort zone. And too many people
Right.
are very, very comfortable in that comfort zone. They
Yeah.
don't want to be accountable. They just like, no, 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 I'm fine. I'm
Right.
comfortable here. And
I'm
I think
comfortable
that's
being
another big
right.
problem.
Right.
Yeah.
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 It's an
I,
ego. It's a whole, you know, the
that's
people who
facts.
make it that far really have these very narcissistic personalities that are
Oh yeah.
very ego driven. And so even if they're just right in their own head, that's sometimes enough for them, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, those kind of people. They're annoying. Well, so what's gonna happen with this? I forget the guy's name.
Bob
The
Cremo.
dad.
Yeah. Bob
Bob
Cremo.
Cremo.
You know, I don't
Yeah.
know. So, you know, one thing I was really kind of worried about was that the prosecution's going to try to get the son to take a plea deal, which, you know, I'm looking at all of these mass shooters lately. And of the
Yeah.
ones that survived, none of them have gone to trial. They're all taking guilty pleas, which sucks because, well, I mean, I'm not saying it sucks because they're pleading guilty, but if they're tried in front of a jury and we
Yeah.
see the witness interviews and we see the evidence, that's a very big moment for the public to kind of get their eyes on the facts of the case, because they're very secretive about that stuff. People
Yeah.
made a big deal about the Tranifesto getting pulled down, but I'm here to tell you, they pull all of them down. They wouldn't
Right.
have let a right-wing manifesto get. I mean, there's been plenty of examples of them pulling those down as
Well,
well.
was the Highland Shooters Manifesto public? Have you seen that?
I did see it. It
Okay.
was 27 pages of random numbers. It was published on Amazon. And to get
On
to it, you
Amazon.
had to basically decode a puzzle. It was an encoded manifesto. We actually had
Ooh.
army cryptographers and crazy types of people working to try to decode it and never actually did. Amazon pulled it after about the first day.
Wow.
So those of us that were lucky enough to get copies of it, I guess, are some of the few
Like
people in
what?
the
You could
world
buy
who
it
have
off
it.
of Amazon, like a book?
Yeah, I've got 2 copies.
What? Weird. Okay.
It's
But
really weird.
it was coded though.
Yeah, all random
Okay.
numbers. I mean, not random, because the random number analysis was not random, but
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it. I can say that we tried really
Weird.
hard to try to make odds and ends of it, but maybe one day the little stupid nerd will give us the explanation. But the other thing is that we don't really know that that was published as part of the shooting. He was also a rapper who was making like an alternate reality game. He was an ARG fan. And so he was
Okay.
trying to make an ARG around his music, which may or may not have been related to the shooting at all. So it's one of those situations where we didn't figure that out till much later. We thought that it was all relevant, but now I'm not
Yeah.
so sure. But
Dang.
anyways,
Okay.
yeah, Amazon did remove it. You won't find it anywhere online, but most of these kids are distributing it intentionally on like 4chan and stuff, right? Because they want people to see it and
These
they want
kids,
people
meaning
to
the
know.
shooters, you mean?
Yeah, especially the
Okay.
ones that are writing manifestos, they're publishing it online because they want to inspire copycats and they want people to see their weird, twisted ideology behind it. And a lot
Yeah.
of times that's like some like great replacement type stuff. It's like real deep, like neo-fascist or eco-fascist kind of ideology, national socialist stuff. Which, I don't think that it should be. I don't think that it should be hidden from the public. I don't think anything should be hidden, especially if the shooter's
I
dead.
agree.
I think that they should release everything unredacted. Because it's silly to act like if I read some deranged manifesto from a guy who killed a bunch of people, I'm not just going to want to start, I'm radicalized and now I want to, like, that's not how it works, right?
Right.
Like, that doesn't work for anybody. Nobody's just going to read something without having a predisposition to wanting to do something like there, or
Yeah. Yeah.
sympathizing with those hateful beliefs. So it's silly that they hide it from the public, because the people who are actually influenced by it, they already have it. It already
True.
exists. And those guys, those Discord servers where they're passing it around, they're already going to get it. And so the only people they're really hiding it from are the normal people. And what's interesting about some of those manifestos lately is they specify exactly what they're trying to do. They're actually saying in there, haha, you're going to call me a Trump supporter, even though I hate Trump. You're going to blame guns and fight over gun control. And that's exactly what I want you to do. Ha, ha,
Yep.
ha, ha, ha. And that's what they're scrubbing offline. So that's what's actually in some of these manifestos that they're, hiding from us. And those are the right. I don't like calling it right wing. So they're very
Right.
fascist. Some of them are more like, left, extreme left. So I know I'm not fond of calling them right or left. They're up here somewhere. They're like way over
Yeah.
there.
They're in their own zone.
So I don't like that people start calling them far right. I don't think that's accurate. But anyways, those are the types of ones though that you would say, oh, this one they scrubbed because, or they didn't scrub because it implicated Trump, but that's not true either. They don't keep any of them up.
Well, the reason I ask about other manifestos in general is because the whole Tranifesto thing. One of the arguments that I saw on the right was, oh, it's only because that the person was trans that they're not releasing the manifesto. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
not true.
remember ever seeing like
Yeah.
manifestos
Well,
in
the
general.
interesting
And
thing is
I
that,
follow the news. Like I'm
yeah,
very much
you don't find
in
it.
yeah, I
They
don't
scrub
see
it.
it at all.
You get banned from YouTube for showing it. no
Right.
matter whose
Okay.
it was. But the interesting thing is that the Tranifesto, which is funny to say, but like it's not really a manifesto. It was a journal that was a
Right.
physical, tangible item. And that's the difference, is that these guys wrote a persuasive essay and distributed
Right.
it online because they
And
wanted
why they
people
were
to know why they
doing
did it.
this.
This
Yeah.
person was a physical possession, so it was actually subject to like estate laws and stuff. So the
Oh, yeah.
parents
Okay.
owned it, right? So
Mm,
people are ignoring the nuance, and they're not talking about how if any of these other shooters had like personal writings, we've had to fight for that release too, like for Columbine, for example.
right.
The tapes and stuff that they've never released about Columbine. It's good that there's a group of people who are trying to sue and say, no, this is in the public interest, and therefore it's not subject to the state laws. So it's going back and forth in the courts, and that's why it's been taking so long to come out. And I'm not trying to say it shouldn't. I think it should all come out, but I would
Yeah.
much rather see the investigation records. Then I don't really care about the ramblings of a deranged mentally ill person. I don't think it really tells us
That's a good
much,
point.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
in the journal, it might say something about their influences or who they were talking to and stuff. So, but I
Right.
want to see their investigation records. Like I'm tired of playing around with, this, basically what they're going to force us to do in all these cases is sue them for free. We're going to issue a Freedom of Information Act request. They're going to come back and say no, or they're going to redact 90% of it. And then you're going to
Yeah.
have to sue
Here you
them.
go.
Yeah. And so normal people can't do that because we don't have the money to sue them. So there are organizations that actually do this, that sue governments to try to get, these things published and released. And like we saw with the Las Vegas shooting, how long that was in 2016, and 7 years later, they just now released the redacted investigation records after a 7-year legal battle.
Yeah.
So this is how hard it is for us to actually get any information. And so I wish that instead of focusing on the trans part, we were actually looking at the problem. Like imagine if someone like Steven Crowder uses platform to advocate for what I'm saying, release all of it, right? Release all of the investigation records, and start a discussion about why they're hiding it from us. What's the
I
point of
mean, he
doing
might.
that?
I don't watch Crowder, so I don't actually know what he advocates for, but
I've heard him
who
advocate for the
knows?
release of the rest of the manifesto, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is something they're doing maliciously. I think it's just
Yeah.
something that they don't even realize is important, or way more important,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they don't
Okay.
understand that the scope of this is actually so large that it encompasses every mass shooting. And, what would we actually find if we were able to look at all of those investigation records? I think we would find that what our independent investigations have found, which is that there's other people behind the scenes influencing these guys. And the fact that we're not talking about those people, asking questions about who they are, why are they not being charged? Why are you charging the dad when I know that his son was involved with some really shady people? Even, and he was even taking trips around the country to shoot guns with these people
Yeah.
in the interim time, in the year or two before the shooting. So this is a case where I've been able to see the influences, and I know that the FBI investigated those people.
Yeah.
But we're not hearing anything about that, which is so strange, right?
I mean, I just feel like the FBI, the government, everyone looks at the population like goldfish, and they'd rather just have people dumb and just not question and not be accountable, not be smart. I think they just want sheep. And,
A lot of people, I think there's good people in the government and bad people in the government. And then
sure.
there's also people in the government who really blindly trust that what they're doing is like for the greater good. And and it's funny you say goldfish, because I've had somebody who I basically exposed as being like a Fed,
Okay.
say, well, you're just a goldfish, right? Like as if we're not
Called you
entitled
a
to
goldfish?
understand. Like in my team of investigators who basically kind of were like, what's going on here, right? This is a different
Yeah.
situation, totally unrelated. But and I'm thinking about that word a lot. I'm like, they really do want us to just be fish in a bowl that
Yep.
they're taking care of, and trust us, go to sleep and close your eyes, everything's fine, we're taking care of it.
Hmm.
But like, these things keep happening. Kids are dying. Kids are getting shot in schools. Like, this isn't just something that's like, oh, I can definitely feel safe in my country. We're feeling less and less safe all the time. right?
Yep.
And so it's time that like we start asking them, or demanding transparency, and maybe show us some data that shows that what you're doing is working in some way, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I take a lot of problem. I think that there are good people who really do think that they're just doing the right thing, but maybe the people above them aren't actually trying to do the right thing. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
I 100% agree with you there. I don't think the people on the top give any shits about anyone except themselves. I do want to read a couple of these chats. Before I do, I just want to remind everyone in the description below, you can find her links. I also added her new Rumble channel, and it's pretty fresh. I mean, you have I don't know how many followers you have. 38. Can we get her to 50? All right. Can we get her to 50? All right. Everyone go to her
I'm
Rumble.
gonna keep uploading, I promise.
She's gonna keep uploading. She promises. You do go live. We're on Twitch actually fairly
Yeah.
often.
Twitch
I
and
see you.
Kick, yeah.
Oh, okay. You're dual streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just dropped her Rumble link in the chat, so go do me a favor. Just go give her a follow over. Let's get her to 50 followers. All right, it's only 12. 12 of you. All right. I actually don't even know how many. We got a couple hundred people. Let's do that. Just a couple. Come on. Can we get her to 100? Can we do 100? But in the description below, you can go follow her and definitely do. Let's see. Over on Rumble, Lengthy Meek Puppet says, Foscad is the future. Facade? What is that? FOSSCAD. I don't know what that is.
FOSSCA, I have no idea.
Facade? Foscad? I don't know what you're trying to say. Dr. Fox for 5 says, "Hey Adam and BX, keep being an awesome humans." I guess there wouldn't be an "and" then. I'm gonna adjust your sentence here. Keep being awesome humans. I can do that. I do my best, I guess. Right? That's all we can do. The Last Crow celebrating 26 months. Wow, Last Crow, thank you so much, sir. I think he left actually. I think he had to go to the store, but appreciate you, mate. Says, "I was late to the live stream. Wish I knew you had a babe as a guest. I'm glad we still have American beauties out there. Makes me happy." And then he added the cursed UWU.
Oh
I'm
no.
not gonna say that. All right, dude. I freaking hate that shit. But thank you, Last Crow. And then Doppler Radar for 10 says, "Why did you run from Tipster? He tried to destroy your life. Rumors say him and Keffels ran tabs on your real life. Why did they want to destroy you?" I don't know what that mean. What any of that means.
Yeah. So I think the Tipsters community was one of those ones that was roped into beefing with me for no reason. And they really did just kind of try to like ruin my life for a little while. That was part of that whole smear campaign. The reason that I didn't run, I don't feel like fighting those useless battles. I have other important things to do with my life. And if I spend time fighting all of those ridiculous people that hopefully anybody can look at and see they're ridiculous, then I'm not doing all the important stuff that I intend to do with my actual life. And if they're trying to run tabs in my real life, good luck to them. Something I wouldn't recommend, but hey.
Okay. I think if we get the blueprint in the background, this probably has something to do with 3D printing.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. 3D printing of a lower receiver for
of a certain something. Yeah,
got it.
Something. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I feel like it's everyone's right to be able to make it themselves. Like that's what it's
the
supposed
thugs
to be
on the
about,
streets with switches aren't out there with CAD software making 3D printed guns. So I'm a big gun enthusiast.
I believe it. I am too. I think an armed society is a polite society, and the people who are doing most of the crime are not getting it legally, and they're only going after legal gun owners. And that's not something I'll be honest, I do a lot of research on. I'm very much more political and cultural stuff, and also ancient civilization stuff is a new venture. Yeah, I'm very big on that. I have a show on Sunday nights with Nerdrotic and
cool. I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's called Forbidden Frontier.
I'm more about like the historical, I'm really into the 60s counterculture stuff right now.
Okay.
Which is an ancient, but it's kind of ancient, but like I'm the same way. I can get into one of those like history, like side quests and just really
Yeah.
get into it.
Well, I mean, I would tell people where I would ask you to tell people where they can find you, but in the description, I got all your links, and you have them in that perfect little website where
Yeah.
you can go down
I need to
and
update
find
it. I'm
her
gonna
and
add
follow
Rumble
her.
and Kick there. But yeah,
Yeah, add them. What are you doing? You're lazy.
I
But
know.
I did add the Rumble link, so you
Okay.
can follow her on Rumble. Let me check. Do we have 50? Did we get to 50? 42. Come on, 8 more. Can we get 8 more people to go
I'm still trying
follow?
to figure out how Rumble even works. Like,
Yeah. Oh man,
but
they're making leaps and bounds though.
yeah,
Holy
I've
shit. From
heard,
when
and
I started.
I'm hoping
Mm,
that I'd like to kind of start doing. So back before my YouTube got pulled, I had some really cool deep dive videos where I would talk in really deep detail about things like
cool.
I had one about the fentanyl crisis.
Oh
And I
wow.
like when I say deep dives, like these are long form videos, right? This isn't a 5 minute whatever you're going to get from everyone else. Like this
Oh
is
yeah.
a lot of it's like you won't find it anywhere else because I found it.
Right.
And so I think
I used
that
to
you
do some
almost
deep
have to
dives.
do that to like stand out now because everybody's
True.
doing but I do hope
This
to
is my
put some of that
opinion
up.
on things. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I'm a fact-based person. I like to get like I always said if I ever had like a media company, I'd call it Side Quest Media because we
I
do
like
go
that.
these little rabbit hole side stories, and that's where the richest stuff is. That's where you
True.
find stuff that maybe nobody saw before, and it's just a really interesting little side story so that's what I like. I don't know if everyone else likes it, but if you're into that kind of stuff, then
Yeah, I mean, I think people love the deep dives and don't don't hate me right now. Gosh, there's so many people that have like, please do deep dives. Please bring your deep dives back. My favorite was I did a deep dive on Trump, and I went all the way back to his like great grandfather, and it was so cool. Like,
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't want to get into the story. Every time I think about it, I'm like, man, this story's cool, and then I start like talking about it, and I'm like, no, I gotta just stop myself. But you know,
Yeah.
I like it. I do like doing deep dives.
I
They
do
are
that
fun.
same thing. Like I found do you like Pearl Jam? You know Pearl
Oh yeah.
Jam? Remember the
I
song
cover
Jeremy?
their stuff. Oh yeah.
Okay, so like I found the kid who was based on that. Like I found the whole story of the
Cool.
kid it was based on, and it was
Uh-huh.
wild. Like I found the police reports on like some fringe website, and it was
What?
so much more bizarre than you could ever imagine. He was at this like
Wow.
really weird psychiatric facility that was known for its abuse and stuff of the kids, and then I found out because of course no one's looked at this for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
I looked up his doctor and I found out his doctor is in jail now. He just got arrested 2 years ago for like sexually abusing a patient.
Oh
So
my
like I'm
gosh.
like now we have a whole new context of like what happened to this kid that Pearl Jam based the song around. Like honestly, his
Right.
parents were very upset about that because it was a whole
Wow.
thing. But yeah, like that's just an example of like stuff that I've had on the docket to
Do
make
you
little
still have
videos
those
about.
videos somewhere?
Well, I haven't made a video about that yet. It's on my list of
Oh.
ones to do.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay.
videos take a really long time because
Well,
I
that's good.
really try to like
But do you
give it
have
my
those old
all.
videos that YouTube got rid of? I mean, you
Yeah,
have them
I'm
backed up
I'm I'm
somewhere?
uploading them onto Rumble now. So, but I'm
Get it
trying to
up
space them out.
there.
I'm trying to space them out. I don't know. I figure if I space them out regularly, maybe the algorithm will like that, you know?
I don't know if the algorithm on Rumble is how it works
I have no clue.
compared to YouTube. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I'll be honest, I would love to watch that deep dive into
Yeah.
Jeremy
I'll make
because
sure to
I
send
love
it to you
Pearl
when I
Jam.
do it. It's
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of
yeah.
like a whole nother thing I did that has to do with like the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which is like a old school conspiracy, but not, I mean, it's a real conspiracy. Like it really
Yeah.
happened, but it's just like one of these fringe history things that people don't know about that to me is so
Cool.
fascinating. So yeah, and
Do it up. That sounds
I
great.
think my
Yeah.
community's really liked it when we've gone into that kind of his like deep diving, researching like MK Ultra projects and stuff. Um, so yeah.
45. We need 5 more people. Come on. Come on, everyone. 5 more people.
And
But
go watch the
it's been
video too.
great.
The video
Yeah.
about the longer one, the 14-minute one about Bob's case is really important. Like,
Yeah. From 2
um,
days ago.
yeah.
Right. Oh, I didn't see this new one. The Twitch Predators.
Oh, that's
Something
the same
that's
one that's on my Twitter. Like I said, I'm just trying to upload,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was really a pleasure talking to you. You know, you're fighting good fights out there and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for
I
having
want you to
me.
know that. Definitely. So, uh thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys supporting me and going to support her. And we've got, I'm going to refresh one more time. 47. All right. Do me a favor. Go over there. I need 3 more people. All right. 3 more people. Just go do me a favor. Go get her to 50. That would be awesome. BX, it was great to have you on the show, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Adam.
Bye, everybody.